Hey everyone, it's Anna J. Wallner with the Bookish Nook, part of the Author Library Network in partnership with Creative Edge Publicity. And today I am pleased to have with me author Kristina Reinzi. Kristina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi. Thank you so much for having me, Anna. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you.
I am a multifaceted human, as we all are, right? So my interests are in both fiction and nonfiction, as well as coaching. So I am a multi-genre author, fiction and nonfiction. I primarily write thrillers, and I'm working on my first nonfiction book on happiness studies. And I'm also a certified professional coach.
Wow, that is a lot. You have over 10 books, as you said, mainly thriller is your genre that you have the most in. Would you say that that's your kind of your sweet spot, your happy place is the thriller genre?
Yes, absolutely. Thriller is my first love in fiction. I do read, and I'm very interested in all other genres. As you know, an author, we tend to read a lot, right, and all different stuff. But writing, I primarily write in thriller, and I have multi-genres within thriller. I've written paranormal. I have some sci-fi, also domestic thrillers, which focus on relationships and family and things like that. So yeah, I've got all different stuff going on, but thriller is the main genre in fiction that I love, and that I primarily write in. I mean, who knows for the future, but that's for me in fiction right now.
Right. I was going to say the Ensouled series is a series that incorporates paranormal elements, but at the heart of it, it's also a thriller as well. Is that true? Is that the only paranormal series that you have?
So I have other yes, and to answer your question, yes. So thriller, there are a lot of ways that you can kind of differentiate thriller from suspense, from mystery, and certainly there's suspense in all stories, even in romance to a certain extent, because you want to keep people
Right.
turning the pages, right? But thriller is
Right.
primarily about getting the bad guy. It's a chase. It's a fast pace. It's kind of like a cat and mouse, and you are trying to kind of get the bad guy. Or get the bad, stop the bad thing from happening. And you're
Gotcha.
preventing something, preventing a crime. I mean, there are crimes as well, but that's thrillers about that fast paced, heart racing, page turning. And that's what gets me going when I'm writing and reading. So yeah, I have Paranormal, Choosing Evil, and Breaking Evil are in the Ensouled series. Also, Paranormal are within Twisted, which is a book of several stories. There are a couple in there that are paranormal as well. And then, I'm always working on multiple things, and I'm
Right.
currently finishing up a nonfiction, but I also have a fiction that I'm working on that'll also be a paranormal spin as well. So I tend to like the paranormal, and I lean toward that, but I certainly also love the domestic thrillers, and I do love sci-fi too. I love it all.
In fact, the next your newest release, Among Us, just released, and it is a sci-fi fantasy fiction thriller. Can you tell us a little bit about that? It includes government conspiracies and aliens, and I mean, it just sounds like a wild ride.
Yes, it is. It was so much fun to write. So Among Us, what is a story about, it starts out as a simple story about a girl from New Jersey who's living a double life. She's living her day as a conservative English professor at a private university. And at night, she's a blogger who blogs about aliens and government conspiracies and all of these things. And she ends up getting caught up in a government conspiracy. Unbeknownst to her, she has a neighbor who's a retired general, and he decides to share some coveted classified information with her, and it gets her on the radar of a security agency that's after her. And so it's a battle for the truth, to tell the truth. And obviously the government doesn't want her to tell the truth, and they have their reasons for that. And so it becomes like a cat and mouse chase. It is fast paced. It's science fiction elements. If you like sci-fi, you'll love it. If you like government conspiracy, you'll love it.
I want to
And
check
I
it
loved writing
out.
it because it was just so much fun to write. And actually, I love watching those kinds of shows about Freedom of Information Act and government documents that have been released to the public and then retracted, and all these different analysis of what they actually could be. And so I used that information and research on that to craft a story of like, what if this stuff in these documents is true? What might that look like? That's kind of where it came from.
I think we, as authors, I mean, don't we always start out with the what if kind of, the hypothesis behind the story? I mean, it could be anything that we see, and we're like, what if, the mouse could talk? What if, you just have this thought and you were like, what if that could actually happen? And then before you know it, then you've got an entire kind of outline in your mind. And then that's whenever the fun part comes in. So I can already, I'm going to make an educated guess, and please feel free to tell me if I'm wrong. You're a pantser.
I am mostly a pantser. You know what's funny? I am a left brainer. Well, I'm both. I mean, let's face it, we all are. We have a whole brain, right? So my left brain is my editor, my right brain is my creator, which happens in the morning. But yeah, what I end up doing is I'm a very loose plotter. I have a loose plot in my head that I pretty much know like where I want the story to begin, kind of where I want it to end, and some things that might happen in the middle. But I let it go. I call myself, I don't know if they call it like a plantser. A plotter and a pantser. Yeah. But I plant ideas, and I like it because I plant ideas, but then I let the story take me. And a lot of stuff in this story, actually the best stuff in this story, the things that were most exciting, I thought, and most twists and turns, which I love twists. Twists are my favorite. In the middle and throughout and at the end. The twists came to me in moments of pantsing and just writing by the seat of my pants. That's what that is for all the readers out there. And then of course, plotting, everybody knows, right? You do an outline or whatever. I don't like to stick too closely to an outline, but I do like to have some guide, because I can get, in circles and go off the rails too. So I like to have some guidance, but absolutely, I let the story take me where it's going to go, and I follow it and see what happens. And you know what? I think that was hard for me as an author, and maybe hard for some other authors out there, is that you forget you were the creator of the universe in your little writing world. And so many times we get stuck to an idea we had, or we get stuck to a plot point, or we think like this has to happen for this to happen. And that is not true. You are the creator, the master of your story, and you make the decisions. And I remember an awesome editor coach telling me one time, like, writing for you and writing for everybody is the art of making decisions. So when you're writing a story, it's all about you making decisions. It's none are right or wrong, it's whatever decision you make, go down that road. You take that fork, you take that, that fork, and you keep going. And then a story comes out, and we all do it differently because we're all different.
Yeah, no. And I think that's one of the, I can tell when an author, if you've been an author if you've been writing for long enough and reading for long enough, you can tell whenever the author is just flying by the seat of their pants, because you're being shocked in all of these different ways. And you're like, oh my, wait, what the, hey, slow down. And I, as an author, can envision the author that wrote the story sitting there at the laptop or wherever their workspace is, and they're just furiously typing this part, because it is so fast paced, and you can tell that it's coming out so fast paced because you've been there yourself, and it comes across on the page. It really, truly does.
It does. And it's also about being open to what comes to you and not stopping it. So I like to write in the early morning, because I feel like my internal editor is asleep, like they're not awake. My right brain is on. And so I also like a messy desk, because I feel like when you have a messy desk, for me, the creative, the right brain comes out, and the right brain gets you the story. Now the left brain gets you the edits, gets you the cleanup, gets you the craft being honed in on, right? So when I'm editing my own story before it goes to a real editor, I have to be in left brain mode. I have to be in like, this is cleanup mode. This is delete mode. This doesn't work mode. I go in with that scrutinizing eye, like all authors do. But when I'm in the creation mode, that's what it is. I have to actually open my mind and body and everything up to what's going to come to me. And when I get stuck, I will literally look at the computer and go, what happens next? What happens? What does she say? What does he say? What happens? How are we going to fix this? I say it out loud because I'm opening myself up to whatever comes to me. When you start trying to figure it out too much and you get too like, analytical and scientific,
don't force it.
I get stuck and I end up writing something that doesn't work because I tried to fit it, a square peg in a round hole kind of thing. And every writer is different. So I can't say that wouldn't work for somebody else. But for me, I need to just put myself aside and let like a divine download happen. Just like what is happening. And it's really about, I already know the story in my head, but it hasn't gotten to the conscious part of my brain yet. So I'm letting it just come forward. Like what's going to happen? What's the right what would you expect to happen? And now twist that a little bit because you don't want it to be all expected
or predictable.
Or predictable. And the most fun part of Among Us wasn't just the story, but the characters, because I feel like this was an exercise for me in character development, because these characters I really put so much energy into them, not in building them ahead of time, but building them along the way and making sure they were three-dimensional and making sure they had backstories that were relatable. And there was really no one antagonist. It was a series of antagonists that somewhere along the line in the story, if you read it, it shifts. The main antagonist obviously is like government versus the people, right? The protagonist is the people, the government is the antagonist. But yeah, it is fun to play with and to think what if, and also just to learn about yourself as a writer through the process, which we do with every story, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And being open, like you said, to those twists and turns are sometimes really beneficial because they'll take you places, if you allow them to these fantastic twists that you wouldn't have otherwise thought of. But yes, I have the same issue. I read advice that some people say, if you have writer's block, sit and force yourself to write something. And eventually it will like grease the wheels. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, I can't do that because I always end up going back and just tossing it out. I've never, not once, kept anything that didn't come to me organically. And so because it just didn't feel authentic and it didn't come across as authentic, and it was very noticeable that it wasn't my voice as an author, it was something contrived.
And you have to know how you work and what's right for you. And so I think with like any advice in life, right? At all.
Right. Yep.
You take it in, you hear it, and you go, okay, maybe I'll try that. Okay, that didn't work for me. This works for me. And I think over time, especially as an author, you learn your way. And it's not that you can't try other ways, but you learn, I think, who you are as an author. And I think the most beneficial thing in life is to know who you are as a human. Like, who am I? Like, I've had people ask me, oh, why don't you try this or that hobby? It's like, that's not for me. I know it. I mean, maybe 10 years ago, I wouldn't have known it and I would have invested hours of my life in something just because I was like, oh, I should try this. I know who I am. And when you know who you are as a human and you know who you are as an author, it's a process of discovery over time. It doesn't happen overnight. You start to be picky with how you do things, and it works because I'm not going to waste my time on this because that doesn't work for me. And I can try it, but it's not going to work. And so people are just sharing what works for them. And I think the awesome part of being like open to learning is that you are willing, like I am, to hear what did you do? How did it work for you? And then I go, there's a nugget in there. That's awesome. And I'm going to try it. And sometimes it's not for you, and that's okay. It worked for them. You do what works for you. Absolutely. There's no right or wrong. You just do what works for you. Some people takes 3 years to get a book out. Some people write a book a month. I used to feel bad and feel like jealous and like I still, but that's not how I operate. And so I have to honor who I am and how I operate and not compare myself to a different prolific writer and think I'm less than or not good enough or not as good, because this is just my process. And you know what? It is what it is. I'm not, maybe one day I can get into a mindset where I'm writing faster, but for me right now, this is what works for me. And I have to honor that and acknowledge that. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely. 110% agree with that. Advice is great, but if you try and it doesn't work for you, don't feel like you've done something bad or you haven't. It's supposed to work for me, and because it didn't, I'm not a good author. That's not the right mindset. That's not the right way to think. Every person as Kristina said, even in life, the way that you fold your towels is different for every person on the planet. And the way that you vacuum and the way that you do the dishes. And it all comes down to personality. And there's so much of your own personality in your writing style if you really sit down and think about it. And your writing process that develops over time that really is a part of who you are. And that's why you can give 10 people the same exact story plot, and you will get 10 wildly different versions of the same story. And, no one can write like you can, and no one can write like they can, and no one can write. You can only write like you. So
that's right. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think we get trapped around failure and what shoulda, coulda, woulda, and what failure is or success. And I believe there's no such thing as failure in life. Failure is a learning experience. If I don't succeed at something, and whatever my definition is, I learned something. Maybe I learned that wasn't for me. Maybe I learned I'm better at, X versus Z, maybe, so there are so many things to learn from failure. Yes, it hurts. Rejection hurts. Failure in our mind, it's only failure to us, hurts.
Human nature.
When we reframe it and we say like, hey, I learned that wasn't for me. And you know what? You're as brave to try as you are to opt out. When you say, you know what, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to write this new thing. Like, I feel like pushing into nonfiction is brave for me, but it's also, I'm happy to do. I'm excited about it. It's comfortable, but it's different. So it's scary, but it's also brave if someone said, well, why don't you write romance? And I say, you know what? I'm brave enough and have enough courage to tell you, I'm not a romance writer. And I love my romance writer friends and I love my romance books, but that's not who I am and what I do best. So guess what? I'm going to let the people who do that best do that. And I do believe we have gifts. And I also believe we can learn new things, but I think it's okay to let somebody else have a gift and not feel like less than because of it. And we all have these things to celebrate, and we're not going to be good at every single thing in the world. And that's okay. But you are good at something, and whatever it is you're good at, figure it out and do it, because the world needs it. The world wants it.
And absolutely 110% agree. Well, in with so many books that you have written, and now taking the leap into nonfiction, what has been personally the best thing about being an author for you so far?
So, oh my gosh, I think the best thing about being an author, I would, like, on the surface, I could say, oh, it's so cool to have a book in my hand and see my name on Amazon. Like, that's like ancillary to me. That's so cool. But what I think the best part is doing something I never thought I could do, being terrified, knowing I had a learning curve, and really being open to criticism and editing and learning. And then, like, in my mind, getting it done, like writing the end, whether it's, a #1 New York Times bestseller or no one bought a book, me getting to the end of a book, and writing the end and having a story complete that somebody else looked at and didn't say burn it, because I thought I should burn my books at times. And I literally was like serious about it. But, that's the best part, because I feel like I got out of my comfort zone. I put myself out there, no matter the outcome. And that was all a growth and learning and development thing for me. Yeah, it's awesome to have a book in my hand. And a lot of times that's what motivates me to get done. It's like, I want that book in my hand because that's the physical representation of my hard work, right?
Yeah.
But really the joy is in the process. The joy is in the writing and the discovery and the courage that I have to do something that I really tried to stop. I still try stopping myself from doing on a regular basis. But I have to push through. So yeah, that's the best part about being an author. And also all the friends I've made, the amazing people I never would have met otherwise, I couldn't live without. Best friends, communities online and in real life that are so important to me. And we share a common bond of understanding what it's like to tell stories, and try to do it for a living, or for even if it's a hobby, but like trying to do it for the public to make a reader happy. Yeah, that kind of cool stuff. Like, that's to me, like, just the joy of being an author. I'm so proud. I honestly, it's very hard for me because I'm one of those people that I do work really hard, but I have like a fear of success, which I think a lot of authors do. And we're always like comparing ourselves to others and like, what if that happens? I can't handle kind of thing. But I've learned to be so appreciative and be proud of myself, to truly be proud of myself for doing something that if you told me 20 years ago I was going to do, I would have laughed and been like, there's no way I am going out in the public and writing anything for anyone to read. And then I'm going to be on like the internet. No way. That is not my personality. I'm a private person. I'm an introvert. I have my close circle. I do my thing. I keep my head down and I work, right? Hard work, put my head down, go. So, but when I realized that stories can heal, stories can help, then I looked at it differently because I've always been a helper. I have my master's in counseling psychology. I'm a certified professional coach. My personality, my heart is in helping. And when I realized that it's not just fiction, fiction is story, and story is an awesome way to get through things in life. It's brought me through things. And now with nonfiction, that I thought, it's not just about my fiction stories. They're fun. It's about connecting with humans and helping people feel good about themselves, and also maybe helping them escape something that maybe they're going through that they don't want to have to deal with, and that story gets them out of it. So I reframed it, and I'm like, you know what? It's so cool to be able to do that. And that made me like have the courage to write.
I love that.
Get out of my own way.
Yeah, even just the act of writing itself, for me, has saved me a lot of times whenever I'm not feeling my greatest, when I'm burnout, when I don't really want to be on social media or do marketing or do, behind the scenes stuff, the business part of things, then I can sit down at the laptop and say, you know what? Let's just dive into where we left off and immerse yourself in writing this story and living this world. And it really does help even us as authors to escape into our own worlds that we're creating. And if you readers, if you love it too, it's just a giant bonus.
Oh my gosh. And you think about, some people play golf, some people paint, some people dance and sing, some people are involved in other organizations or different kinds of hobbies. And not that I'm not trying to say it's just a hobby for us. This is a lifestyle, but this is the thing, whether you want to call it a profession or a hobby or whatever, this is the thing that is like meditative to me. It's like cathartic to me. It's like some people like to love to go to the gym. They love to exercise. And I'm not saying that you can't love to exercise and paint and golf while you're a writer, but my point is there's usually one or two things as a human that like feed your soul truly from the inside out. And authors, if you're doing it for the right reasons, for the creative reasons of creation, it's feeding your soul. And this is why you do it. Even if I find for me, when I don't have time to dive in hours at a time into my book, even writing a blog post, writing my newsletter, any kind of
writing in your journal at night.
Absolutely. It's telling a story or it's sharing. For me, it's all about the end. I want the end reader to get something out of it, whether it's entertainment or something else, right? So when I know that I'm sharing my gift to write and my gift of whatever, be it a story to tell, or maybe some information if it's nonfiction, or like motivation, inspiration. When I know I'm doing that, I do feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, that I'm here. Like, this is why I'm here. It feels good, not just for me, but I feel like I got my info out, whatever that is. And yeah, it's cathartic. And I think that anybody who does this long-term, it feels that way. I know there are people who jump in and out of different things, like, oh, let me try and write a book, or let me try and do this. And you try things, like I've tried sports, and I'm like, not for me. That's not my personality. Nothing wrong with it. But like for writing, once I've always written my whole life, but once I decided to take myself seriously and really work on my craft and get true feedback and try to do the right thing and be able to write a novel, I felt like I am doing what I've always was meant to do. I'm doing the things that I've always been meant to do, which, whether I'm a coach, whether whatever my job is, or whatever my like educational training is, which I love. I'm a learner and I love school, and I will go to school for the rest of my life if I could. My way of communicating that is through writing. So for me, I can be all of those things, and that's great. But writing is the way that I satisfy those goals. I tell my story in nonfiction or fiction. And, but yeah, absolutely. Gets you through your darkest days. It got me through my darkest days. It got me through times of joy. Like it's just, it's how authors cope with life. You know, we write. This is what we do. This is our gift.
So very
And
true.
we work on it. We work really hard. It's not like we you know, some people woke up and were born and were like, I'm awesome. I'm an awesome writer. I'm a Pulitzer Prize winner, you know, whatever. Like I'm writing these books. I'm getting all of these, I mean, or whatever your gift is that you woke up with, right?
It's a journey.
Sports, you know, Olympian. I didn't do that. I didn't wake up with that gift. I woke up with a desire I love language. I love communicating. I love helping. And I worked at it, and I'll always work at it. And so that's, for me, has been, you know, so challenging, but so rewarding.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing all of that with us. I know that, you know, there are a lot of authors out there that that find inspiration in the things that you know you have to say. And I mean, I feel exactly the same way. Guys, just don't ever stop, you know, trying and learning, and don't look at, like Kristina said, you know, don't look at a failure as a failure. Look at it as a learning experience and something to improve on next time. So, you know, the whole, you know, aspect of becoming an author, and it's an entire journey. And we'll stand on our last book, looking at our first book, and say, wow, how far have I come? I mean,
Sure.
You know, and just embrace it for what it is and take joy from it. So thank you, so much.
Not the author. You will be a different author in 5 years than you are today. And that's awesome. This is just constant.
Absolutely.
It's growing. And yeah, failure isn't, it doesn't always teach you like what to do better. Sometimes it teaches you what to let go. That's okay. Right? That's okay. You could do something else, try something, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. But the most important thing is to believe in yourself. And if you care about something and something's important to you, like writing, do it.
Absolutely.
Just
Everybody,
do more of what makes you happy. Do what feeds your soul. Just do it.
Great advice. And everyone, make sure to check out Kristina's links in the description below. I will have her Amazon page so that you can check out the books that she has out now, including Among Us, which just released, and keep an eye on what is coming soon, her nonfiction book on how to be about happiness. So keep an eye on that for all things up to date. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on great upcoming content like this. And we'll see you soon. Everyone stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you again, Kristina.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, guys.
All right. Bye.